Welcome to GJA Spotlight, a space for conversations about advocacy, compassion, and human flourishing. Each episode highlights stories, perspectives, and small actions that create a meaningful difference in our communities and beyond. Whether you're listening as a counseling student, an advocate, or someone who just simply cares about people, we're glad you're here. Let's get started.
Welcome to the GJA Spotlight. I'm Dr. Cindy Murphy, and I'm one of the faculty advisors for the Global Justice Advocates Club here at GCU. We are excited that you're here, and I'm going to turn it over to Mia Lewis for an introduction and for us to get started with our podcast.
Thank you so much, Dr. Murphy. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Mia. I serve as the communications director for the club GJA on GCU's campus. I am from Los Angeles, California, where we get the sun all the time. Also, I just recently graduated from GCU with my master's in education in the emphasis of school counseling. I'm so excited about it. I also have been in the education field as a teacher for 4 years. I have served as a high school principal for the last year. I'm going into my second year as principal at the high school in my local community. I am a strong advocate for my students, the underserved population. I am also an advocate for the hard of hearing and deaf community as I wear hearing aids myself, as young as I am. I also have 2 wonderful kids. I love that life. I am a wonderful wife. I am very passionate about being involved in my community. So you'll hear me saying I'm a basketball coach. I have a nonprofit in my community. I'm all about my students and my community. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm going to throw it back to Dr. Murphy.
Thanks, Mia. So now I'd like to introduce our guest for today. Dr. Sarah Patterson-Mills is the Director of Counselor Education and Supervision Program and has more than 17 years of higher education experience as faculty and in leadership roles, including department chair and program director. She also has 25 years of clinical experience across hospitals, schools, outpatient, and private practice settings. A licensed professional counselor and family therapist, she specializes in couples and family counseling and maintains a small telemental health private practice. She is active in the career development field, serving as an assistant editor for the National Career Development Association's Career Developments and as a reviewer for the Journal of Employment Counseling and the Career Development Quarterly. Her interests include counselor education, career development, supervision, advocacy, and integrating clinical and educational experience. Dr. Patterson-Mills, we're excited that you're here today. Mia, I'm going to turn it back over to you to get us started.
Thank you so much. Dr. Sarah Patterson-Mills, you sound so interesting, and I'm so excited. So excited to have you. Thank you so much for your time. I am excited to have you, especially coming from the school counselor stance, and getting to know how we can advocate more as school counselors. So let's dive right in. Could you tell me a little bit more about yourself? What inspired you to become an advocate? Maybe some issues and areas of your passion?
Absolutely. I'd love to. Again, thank you for the opportunity. I think growing up, I got the role modeling I needed from my grandma and also my mom. Because as I was thinking about getting ready for this, where did this all start? It was in the smaller things, but things like attributing cause to somebody or their behavior without giving them the benefit of the doubt. My mom was really big on that. So, in other words, coming into a situation without those preconceived ideas, seeking information and questions. And then I've always been somebody that really advocates for the underdog. As a result of that, my grandma was a social worker and she would take me with her on home visits. This was way back when. And I won't tell you how far, but you can do the math from my intro. And, from that point forward, she also had several foster kids that she helped raise. And she specifically raised teenagers because they were the hardest to place. And so she had several additional kids. So taking all of that in, I think, had a huge impact on several areas. As a school counselor, certainly it was, you have the extremes, right? You have the very top-notch achieving students. You have two D's or two F's. You're going to come see me. I'm the school counselor. What about everybody in the middle? That always kind of caught me. It's the ones in the middle too that have to also be attended to. And so the every student counts mantra from ASCA is really pertinent here. In career counseling, obviously we don't all have the same access and opportunity.
Correct.
And this could be even starting in K-12. So at K-12, depending on the school you're in, I'm in St. Louis, and our St. Louis public schools, I did a presentation a few years ago, and they had just been certified. They just lost that in the last year, sadly. I remember the excitement about that. I remember the hope that came with that. Because there, having been a program manager for school counseling over in one of the most impoverished areas in East St. Louis, Belleville, which is right next to East St. Louis, always had students in that district, and you could see the disparity. So really, there is a huge disparity. In fact, I can give you an example. No textbooks until the middle of October. Permanent subs assigned until Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't allocate the funding properly to anticipate the number of people that would be coming and make sure they had enough teachers. This happens routinely in some districts.
Yes.
Yeah. And then of course clinically, you see the stigma. I worked in acute psych for one of my internships. It was a year long at our city hospital, one of our city hospitals, that is the only one that doesn't take insurance. And so we had a lot of the homeless population because they didn't have Medicaid or insurance to pay for their stay. And so working with that population too gave me some really good insight into how does it come to be that people are in this place, and what should we be doing about it?
Correct.
Yeah.
And I love that you said the middle students, right? So the ones that are lost. So growing up, I was the middle student. I wasn't like high honors, but I wasn't failing. And that's what got me into the role of a school counselor. I feel like I was my counselor in high school didn't call me in her office because I didn't have a 4.0 GPA.
Right.
But she also didn't call me in her office because I wasn't failing classes. So I got overlooked. And so I became a school counselor because I was like, I want to be the one that's passionate for everybody. And so I love that you pointed out the middle students because that was me.
Well, and
Okay.
a lot of studies do show that putting students that are in the middle with the next achieving level, however you divide that within your school, will result in higher performing students. There's a fair amount of research more recent research on AP students, and maybe, when you put someone in an AP class, women of color are the lower by census in those classes. And yet they found when they went ahead and put them in with higher achieving students, they did well. So there's something to that, fulfilling prophecy or whatever we want to call it, but that's what the research shows.
I'm gonna have to go research that myself. That sounds very interesting. I love that topic.
Yep.
So what are some things that you're advocating for in today's world, if any, and like what are you doing to advocate for that? So for me, I know as school counselor, advocate for students can look different, but it also As a school counselor, you might not have a lot of authority or support behind you to advocate for your students. So for me as a school in training, I'm about to dive right into school counseling. How can I advocate for those students and you don't have the support?
It's in every level of education I have run into, we need more counselors.
Hmm.
We don't have enough counselors. I used to be a junior college campus therapist years ago before they started the school-based mental health movement. This was kind of a few years before that. And I would go and visit schools because I had that background. But the other place they would put me on rotation was in the junior college in our area. Well, 45 minutes away. So it was kind of a rural area, but they had a dorm.
Hmm.
Um, anyway, that made things very different because the kids were living there, students were living there. Adds a different dimension to things, as you can imagine. But in both that setting and in a school counseling setting, I have had to argue for more counselors.
Hmm.
So in both it's been a parallel process in both types of settings. And that is to show the administrators what the language that they understand, and that would be data. And
Yes.
I jokingly say that four-letter word that we have to be very comfortable with. So really working with students and training to be comfortable, counselors in training to be comfortable with using that data that can help affect change. Because when you put together, we have something in Missouri called the Internal Improvement Review. And point of interest, Norm Geisbers is from Missouri,
Mm.
father of modern school counseling. Have had the wonderful honor of having a few meetings with him and was at one of his retirement functions a few years ago. Um, so we have a real presence, school counselors in Missouri in particular. And that is the IIR is a way to review how fully implemented your program is. But more than that, it is an advocacy tool because you can look at a specific area and it's based on the informed by the ASCA model.
Mhm.
You can say, look, and the thing is, you want to have a conversation with the principal and do some planning at the beginning of the year. Look where we're at. Here's what percent we are implementing individual counseling. Are we hitting all the kids? Here's where we are with implementing our classroom counseling, proactive, preventative stuff. And so every time that you're able to kind of put those numbers together in whatever format, at whatever educational level, and present it to an administrator, those numbers usually speak for themselves. You
Yeah.
can also show within school counseling, of course, and in other places, pre and post growth,
Hmm.
which they like to see. What was the percent improvement as a result of what we did?
I love that. For GCU, they taught us a lot of data-driven exercises and give us a lot of examples of like what could we do to collect data to improve X, Y, and Z. Uh,
Yes,
I'm
yes,
glad I am kind of prepared. That's a little relief. Have you run
absolutely.
into any challenges while you've been trying to advocate for your students? And how can you overcome these challenges?
Yes.
Of course.
Short answer, yes. Um, it helps to be a little persistent. And so if I was working with a kiddo that was, you know, um, resisting what the teacher asked, I would say to them, this could also be really a superpower for you
Mhm.
in that you could use it to be a huge spokesperson and advocate because you're determined, right? So, in the reframing of things, I think it's really important because that helps empower our students. Um, the things that are difficult right now, I think when we look at the news and our students, and we can't help but look at the news, uh, we're seeing, I don't know, street takeovers, for example.
Mhm.
I read the comments. I don't always read the story. I read the comments to see how different groups are responding to things. And I think that is a huge barrier because there's a high polarization. There's not a lot of people listening, and there's a lot of finger pointing.
Yes.
And that is not advocacy. And also it's not advocacy when people go and destroy property necessarily, right? So advocacy, I think our definition of it as a culture has gotten a little skewed. I think true advocacy is the pen is mightier than the sword. I'm sorry to sound old school on that. But sometimes, taking the time to listen to the other side, maintaining two viewpoints, and having that courageous conversation and exchange is what needs to happen, without while suspending bias. We all have bias, but while attending to it, knowing it's there, seeing it when it rears its ugly head, and saying, okay, you know what, I need to check that out. So I think there's some things that we have internally and externally that are barriers to that.
Yes, I love that. Yes, yes. For me, coming in as a school counselor, what's something that you wish every future school counselor understood about advocacy before entering the profession?
I encourage my school counselors to also get their license, professional counselor. I started backwards. I was a licensed professional counselor and then added on my school counseling.
Okay.
The reason is it does help in the eyes of the other counselors provide a legitimacy. School counselors in and of themselves, in my head, are legitimate. There was this whole movement at one point to call school counselors professional school counselors. And I kept saying, you're calling them professional school counselors, and you're calling the regular counselors professional counselors. Then they took the professional away from school counselors. And I went, what? That's dividing us.
Yes.
That's really dividing us because, as one voice, we have much more advocacy power than we do when we're fractioned and apart. And that's happened in a few places. And I think that strength comes in those numbers. And it also helps to continue to educate. Even when I have an adolescent client and I'm seeing them maybe in a private practice setting, people might think I'm just playing Uno with them, right? Or I'm just kind of sitting around playing games. But that's not what I'm doing. There's so many more layers to that.
Right.
It's that rapport building and all that. So I think there's still a lot of education that needs to happen as well.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up really quick, but just shortly, what's one piece of advice you would give a counselor in training, or someone like myself who's getting ready to enter? Just maybe one word or one sentence that you would advise.
Get involved
Yes.
in your professional organization. It doesn't matter if it's a sub-state committee. When I was in Illinois, we had no budget passed and that affected education. The year that I was working in some of the years I was working over there. And so we ended up as an organization writing a white paper, and I was primary author on that, and it got sent to government. It actually, the language from that bill from the white paper got put into the bill when the budget passed a year later. So you have to have that persistence. And you have to stay involved, and being a part of that organization, the Illinois School Counselor Association, was strength in numbers and support, even when things get hard. So stay connected to each other, support each other.
Oh, great advice. Great advice. So we want to thank you as we wrap up today's episode. I really want to extend a heartfelt thank you to Dr. Sarah Patterson-Mills for sharing her knowledge, the experience, and the passion that you share with us for advocacy. Today's conversation reminded me that advocacy is not just something us counselors do, but it's something that we're actually called to do, right? Whether we're supporting are one student influencing policies, working towards that social justice on a larger scale. But I do know that every voice matters and every action matters. On behalf of Global Justice Advocates, we thank you for joining us. Together, let's continue to promote human flourishing, advancing social justice, and empowering others through our advocacy. Everyone have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for spending time with us on GJA Spotlight. To stay connected and see what we're working on next, follow us on Instagram at GCU_Global Justice Advocates. Until next time, keep showing up and staying curious.